The call to order, Town Council public hearing and regular meeting, January 19th, 2023. Roll call, please.
Buckholz present.
Holloway present.
Buda present.
Grossman present.
Bennett present somewhat.
Hey, Steve, we need you to just declare where you are and why you're not here as well.
Okay, I'm at home because I'm sick.
Thank you. Andrew?
And I'm in Wisconsin.
All right. Thank you. We have a quorum. And let's stand, have a moment of silence, and pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. John, I guess the next is on you, unless you'd like me to introduce myself and Ken.
So I'd like to welcome our new mayor, Mayor Charney, whose term took effect on January 1st, and Councilmember Buda, who's also here with us for the first time. Welcome, and we're excited to have you with us. Also, Councilwoman Holloway and Councilman Grossman were reelected, and we are all very well aware of them and the contribution that they bring. So very excited to work with all of you, and looking forward to a productive year.
Thank you. Public hearing, zoning text amendment 2023-01, application from Lot 4 Holdings, LLC, co-owner Winmar Advisory to amend Article 3 to create a new zoning district called Bay Crossing Plan Unit Development, and to amend any other sections of the zoning ordinances deemed appropriate to achieve the purposes described herein. And B, zoning map amendment 2023-01, application from Lot 4 Holdings, LLC, co-owner Winmar Advisory to rezone tax map number 90-19-A from residential R3 to the new zoning district called Bay Crossing Plan Unit Development District, if so created. Katie, will you please provide an overview?
The only new information that has come in since you first saw this last month, when you actually referred this out for public hearing, and of course that it went to the public hearing in January 2nd, 3rd, before the Planning Commission, is the property's now been purchased from General Builders LLC by Lot 4 Holdings LLC. We included a copy of that deed into your packet as well. As we indicated, he's seeking to create a planning unit development zoning district with specific deviations proposed from the residential 3 zoning district to allow for smaller square footage multifamily unit residential development, more specifically targeting workforce housing. We've enclosed a copy of that zoning text amendment. One of the new items I did, since it got referenced several times during the Planning Commission public hearing, is this really a deviation off the R3 zoning ordinance. We wanted you to see what is the R3 versus you trying to hunt out your own zoning ordinance and look it up. I did include a chart showing all the R3 as it compares to the PUD proposed by the applicant. From the Planning Commission public hearing, they do have a recommendation in which they did propose a few changes to the document. They were proposing within the statement of intent, section 1, item 1, to delete one whole sentence and insert, so it reads, only the targeted housing market is the workforce housing segment. And again, I won't read that in depth at this point, but we can further when we come into discussion with the board. We also added a minimum of 5 acres for the PUD district be added to section 1, item 4. This is something that we talked about when this actually was referred to you for public hearing and your review. We noted that it had been absent from the document, and the applicant intended for that to be part of the document. So it has since now been added, and the Planning Commission has included it as part of the recommendation. And changes, the planning commission is in support of recommending the proposed creation of the PUD and for the rezoning of the one parcel listed from PUD 3 to this new PUD district.
Thank you. Are there any public comments?
I do not have anybody signed up for the public hearing.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that we close in the public.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, let it be known it's unanimous. Mr. Marine, your presentation, please.
No,
come later.
it's Main Street.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Number 5.
My apologies. Cape Charles Main Street to get presentation. Skipped right down again.
Moves along.
Wouldn't be the only time.
Right.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
That was a nice lead-in to our presentation. First of all, I want to congratulate the new town council members.
Thank you.
Tammy, Paul, and Mayor Charney.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, Cape Charles Main Street is out to make this presentation. Hopefully, it's going to be a biennial thing, one in January and one in July, because we're in the same fiscal year. So, with that, let's meet our staff. We have Karen Zamorsky, who is our executive director, our full-time executive director. And recently, we've added Claire Nowakowski, who's our marketing administrator. So, and she's been a great help. She's part-time. This is our board of directors. We've had quite a few changes in the last year. Specifically, Jay Abella, Tara Ashworth, Julie Kraus, Jerry Taylor, Pat James, and Lori Peters have all come in over the last year. So we have a great board. It's a working board, and we're happy that we have that board. Now I'd like to have Karen come up. She's going to do the rest. Not the rest, but she's going to talk about our accomplishments.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Let's see. Oh, you got it for me. Libby, is the left or the right forward? The right. Okay, thanks. For those of you that are new, that we haven't presented to before at Town Council, I just wanted to quickly give a short list of some of the things that we get by being Virginia Main Street. A lot of people ask, you know, why we wanted to do it, and there's a lot of really good reasons, and here's a few. We have a direct representative at DHCD who looks out for us, Kyle Meyer. He guides us on what grants are coming up. He talks to us about projects that we have on our plates and what might be a good fit. and always has training programs available to us when we're looking, to make our move to the next level. We also have access to grants that we don't otherwise have access to, that only Virginia Main Streets are able to access. And we've had several of those already go into effect here in town. And obviously, there's going to be a lot more we're going to talk about in a minute. But also a lot of other resources, like Esri, GIS mapping software, etc. Now, of course, we want to talk about the numbers. This is just kind of a touch on some of the things we've done as far as support for the town, as far as beautification, and events that we've put on. There's only a couple I want to point out now, because we're going to talk about more of these a little bit further in the presentation. One of the things that a lot of people have heard about for a long time now is the COVID relief grant. Thank God it ended. So we finally got off our plate in April of 22. We had, though, a banner year last year with grants, and we're off to an even better start this year. We'll talk a little bit more about that. One of our things that we've worked on a long time, and Andy knows this, is getting our designation and getting our signs up. So thank you, Andy, for getting our designation signs up. I'm sure everybody's seen them, both coming in on Stone Road as well as from the other way, from Bay Creek coming over the hump. We, last year, moved the train car, and we're getting ready to remediate that. But also it's in its final location, so there's obviously a lot more projects coming with that, and I'm sure, everyone here is aware of the visitor center and the bathrooms, which all of our businesses are very excited about. And our annual job fair, that will again kick off again this spring. We had a lot of good feedback on that last year. A little bit more about some of the grants. When you look down this list in fiscal year 22, we actually pulled in $125,495 in grants, and we've listed them all out here. One of the amazing things is this year, we're 6 months in, and we're at 145 in already. Thank you, Tammy, for pointing us in that direction. A little bit more about the COVID grant. A lot of people have seen this check at $845,000 plus. We actually ended up with 896 because we had more applications than we had funds. And when we first applied, we were told by DHCD and the state they didn't believe that we could possibly give away that much money. And I said, oh, I bet we can. And then when we got to near the end, we had 30-some applications over what we could fund. They were kind enough to allow us to submit them, and when it was said and done, they funded all of them. So, thank you, Paul, for getting out that word. I think it was 345 letters. A lot, yes.
Don't you want some money?
Exactly. We were able to help 88 businesses, which was fabulous and great feeling. Our events, we, of course, have the annual Love Run, our Love Fest in the Park and Festive Fridays. We have started to get some others in the mix. Our Shop and Stroll, we held the first one last year. Businesses liked it so much they asked us if we would keep doing it. So we'll talk more about when those events are coming this year. But the other annual Love Run, Love Fest in the Park and Festive Fridays are really our three signature events. Those are the events that our residents and visitors all know now and are looking forward to each year. So we put a lot of our efforts in marketing around those. Of course, we cannot do this without our volunteers. Our volunteers are absolutely tremendous. This year alone, we had 3,512 hours, or this past year in 2022, and that equates to over $90,000 that we would have had to, if we had to purchase those services. To date, since Main Street came on board, we've had 11,015 at $292,338. That is something that it goes right to our bottom line. So here's just a few reminders of some of the events we held this past year. You see the Love Run. I love my air guitar player there. One of my favorite shots. And of course, Festive Fridays, which just ended. And we'll talk more about that. Now let's look at a couple of things about the marketing of Cape Charles. When I say marketing, this is only the things that we put in ads, print, and those things that are actual marketing. Obviously, when we looked at that other slide, there's a lot of other things we do besides just marketing. So this is really where we dig in and we look at where can we put our efforts that will best get us the most return on our dollar. And again, we do not utilize these during anything but shoulder seasons. So, except WESR, that's year round, because that is a buy local campaign, and it doesn't matter what time of year it is, it's always buy local. 21 versus 22 tax comparison. Some people will say we shouldn't be comparing 22 to 21. If you go back and look at the 2019 numbers, the 2021 numbers were higher than 2019. So not only did we bounce back from COVID after 2020, we exceeded it. And proof that our marketing efforts and other efforts are working for beautification of Cape Charles, 22 was another banner year. Our new website, if you haven't been there, Cape Charles, Virginia's Cape, the video we opened with sits on that site. So please go there. There's a lot of other things. We do monthly blogs. There's an events page. We're trying to, this year, really push hard to get everybody to get their events onto the Cape Charles, Virginia's Cape website. Our first year, which actually was exactly a year, we launched in June of 21, and these are as of June 22. New website users, not bad, and we're getting a lot of website views. They're going up every month. Our Facebook pages, we manage, of course, the Cape Charles, Virginia's Cape Facebook, as well as Main Street's Facebook. Those numbers are going way up, and a lot of that has to do with the people that we've brought on now. We have a person that specializes in social media that works 5 to 10 hours a week, as well as our promotions team, who also has social marketing, media marketing experience, as does Claire. And Instagram is doing extremely well. And I'm going to let Bill go through the financials.
Thank you, Karen. So, the FY '22 financials, as you can see, we had a big delta between the income and the expenses. I just want to kind of elaborate on that for a second. And that is because when we do an event or a project and we have a grant for it, we don't get the money until after we turn in the receipts. So, and in this case, some of ours didn't even come in until the end of after the next fiscal year. That's why you saw in the previous grant chart why we've got so much money. So it's not a very big thing. I will tell you this, that our income, the town, the percentage that the town is giving us is dropping each year. You'll see that on the next chart, which will show the 6 months to date. But payroll is our biggest expense, but we're doing fundraising. Karen mentioned the grants and our events. So let's take a look at the first 6 months of this fiscal year. You can see now that the town's even less on the percentage. Look at the events project, $67,000 we've gotten already on our events and projects. So $192,000 compared to $239,000 from the entire year last year. I will say that it's going to be slow from now until June. I mean, we had the Love Fest, we had Festive Fridays. Festive Fridays was really big. Karen's going to talk about that in a minute. But we're doing well, and you can see that there's about $38,000 delta between income and expenses there. So it all works out in the end. I'm going to let Karen go back and complete the presentation. Thank you.
Okay, good. So we have several things coming up. Because we're concentrating on shoulder seasons, this year, in addition to the shop and stroll, we've decided to add what we call Love the Locals Week. So our locals will be able to shop, they'll be able to dine out, and there'll be specials running all week February 4th through February 11th. So there'll be more information about all of these things on the Facebook page. They are participating in a shop and stroll that will culminate at the end of the week, where people pick up passports and they get a stamp at every shop, and then we draw for prizes. So it does draw people in, and the businesses said they did very, very well last year, so we are doing that again. We are going to expand our Love Run. It was always meant to become one of our signature events. Runs make a great draw and earn good money that we can put to good use here in town. So we are going to a 10K this year, as well as the 5K, and we have a company that's going to help us manage that out of Virginia Beach and help us to promote it. So we see that taking off in a big way this year. We are working on our 2024 plans. We're also looking at doing an annual report this year. Now that we've kind of got our feet under us and we're established, we think it's time to grow up and have a real annual report. So we hope to have it for you this coming year. We'll continue, of course, our signature events, all of those, and I want to talk, though, a little bit more about our train car and visitor center. One of the free services we get as a Virginia Main Street is Fraser & Associates. They are architects that specialize in historic renovation and preservation. So they kindly made a very quick drawing for us of what this might possibly look like. As you can see, the train car is where it is now, and the new visitor center bathrooms will be just to the east of it. So these aren't the colors. We have done some research. We know the train should be black with most likely gold or white lettering, so we will be updating these drawings as we get further in. But we wanted to thank everyone that participated in all the grant writing and all of the work that has been put together. Main Street has put $155,000 of grant money towards this project. So that was to date, and I'm sure there will be more to come. Before we stop, there's one thing. You have as an addendum to your packet, Festive Fridays survey data. I just wanted to point out a couple quick things on that. This year, ESVA Tourism has taken some ARPA money and put it towards a company called Advanced Tourism. I partnered with them for Festive Fridays, and what we did was we drew a quadrant around our Festive Fridays area and the shops, and what we are doing is measuring where people come from by their cell phone. Their cell phones can track directly back to where their billing goes. So, yes.
Scary.
we captured that data, and they were able to go back to 2021 and pull the same quadrant so that we'll be able to compare year over year where our visitors come from, whether they're on the shore, exactly where on the shore, and what city and what town they come from. So that will allow us to do a lot better targeted marketing in the future. So that's one of the things. I've got the raw data now. I'm working with ESVA Tourism. They're going to work with me on how we extrapolate what we need, and I'll present that in a later presentation. And the other thing that I really wanted people to be aware of, we did surveys, as we always do, but this year we got 75 surveys of visitors to Festive Fridays done. 46% of those surveyed had never been here before. It was their first time here. That's amazing. So knowing that, we've set a new precedent with Festive Fridays. Next year, it has to be as good, if not better. So I'll let you look through that presentation and the summary. If there are any questions, we're happy to answer them. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I have one question.
Yes.
On the first, the grants, the listing is impressive. Do you have expertise on grant writing, or you've learned over time how to?
We learn as we go, Paul. No, I've never had grant writing, and it's really a combination of everybody on the board. Tammy, Bill, me, new people.
So once you've got a couple under your belts, now
Yes.
you know what to emphasize? Okay, thank you.
Yes.
All right.
And each one is different.
It
But
is.
if you're applying for Virginia Tourism versus Northampton County versus AARP, the needs of those grants are different, but the basic information you can kind of
Right,
steal from.
Right.
Just
Yeah.
good.
Okay, good.
A lot of things are repeat, so it's
Yeah.
helpful. Thanks.
Any other questions?
Okay,
We're good.
thanks.
All right. Let's see here. So that's Main Street. All right, recognition of visitors, presentations. Oh, no, that's Cape Charles. Number six, here we go. Public comment. Do we have anyone signed up?
Diane Davis.
Good evening,
Good evening.
Good evening.
Mr. Mayor,
Hello.
members of the council, clerk, and manager. I'm Diane Davis, resident, 601 Jefferson Avenue. Welcome to the new persons who've come aboard serving our town. I would just like to remind you of a few things. You know, the historic district in the town of Cape Charles consists of more than just Mason Avenue and Bay Avenue. We have the Fig Street, Pine Street, from Mason Avenue all the way to Washington Avenue, all of that. And that should be the concern of everybody. I just want to put that out there. I would like to suggest that from time to time, and I know you have other jobs and all, but take your time and just ride through or walk through the town, not Mason Avenue and Bay Avenue, because you go probably there all the time. But take your time and walking down these streets or drive around. In the daytime, at night, because night you don't know what's going on around town. There's not that much going on, but because of the fact I do walk and I do observe. And recently I took a different direction. And as I was walking, I found out some of the blocks were really dark. And, well, the town in some places dark, period. But this is really dark. So as I got closer, I noticed some of the lights were out. That's why it was so dark. Now, I did report that those lights were out. And of course, at this point, they have not been put in, but hopefully they will be, somebody will put the lighting up there soon. I know previously, well, some years ago, when we saw lights out, it was just a matter of calling, and didn't take that long for them to come down and to replace the lights. So hopefully, someone will look at that and get some lights in there, because we're walking, and I don't mind walking. The trail is fine because we have lights, but other parts of town, we need to make sure that we're looking at all those different parts that we do have. So I would appreciate that if you all just from time to time. Daytime is fine, but night, we do exist in the nighttime also. I would like to just say to all of you, have a great year. Keep in mind that we're here, and hopefully remember that you're working for all of us, not just a few. May God bless each of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Donna Only Kohler. First of all, I want to welcome our new town mayor and our newly elected and re-elected councilors. Thank you to each and every one of you for your commitment and service to the town. My name is Donna Only Kohler, and I live at 711 Tazewell Avenue, which operates as Fig Street Inn. I'm here today to ask the town to go on record with our state representatives against Senate Bill 1391. The bill proposed by our local representative, Linwood Lewis, would limit our town's ability to regulate the short-term rental industry. Short-term rentals, or STRs, are a multi-billion-dollar industry. It is not simply a few people here and there renting out their homes to make a few extra dollars. As a bed and breakfast, I am required to live at my property. I am required to provide off-street parking for each guest room. I am required to be inspected every single year. I have to follow a number of other regulations in regards to insurance, safety, fire code, ADA, food service, alcohol service, sanitation, tax reporting, and personnel training. Senate Bill 1391 would not allow the town to institute requirements for short-term rentals that are listed with a Realtor. My lodging property is not that different from an STR. We each provide a hospitality experience to transient guests. The experience may be different, but at its core, it is all about an experience. Why should my requirements be stricter than those required of an STR? Why should an STR marketed by an individual be stricter than those marketed by a Realtor? Cape Charles knows its community and its needs the best. Regulations for local businesses should be kept local. I ask the town to publicly oppose Senate Bill 1391. I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Janet Justice.
So I understand this is a tricky way to get to the podium. I'll try not to create chaos in the lovely town. I am Janet Justice, and I wanted to take an opportunity to introduce myself to the council. I am the newly appointed interim system librarian for Eastern Shore Public Libraries. And as a native of the Eastern Shore, I'm going to confess that I always thought that my public library was Accomack, and that's what Eastern Shore Public Library is. But I'm here to explain that Eastern Shore Public Libraries is actually a recognized regional system, and it's comprised of 4 very important partners. One of those partners is the library at Cape Charles Memorial Library, Nassauatics Free Library, Hub in Accomack, hopefully moving to Parksley, if the wind blows in the right direction, and Chincoteague Island Library. And each of these libraries is unique, independent, and supported by its community. And I wanted to say a special thanks. When I presented to my Board of Trustees recently the system report, one of the things they commented on was how wonderfully integrated Cape Charles Memorial Library is with the town of Cape Charles. And that was especially demonstrated by their support and the board's support and participation in the festive Fridays. And that same kind of spirit on Chincoteague. So we want to thank the town for supporting Cape Charles Memorial Library. We also want to let everyone know that we have opportunities to support all 4 partner libraries. We can do that in a variety of ways, working with the Library of Virginia, with the American Library Association, with the Virginia Library Association. We offer lifelong learning to all of our users. We also offer it to all of our colleagues. Librarians are large collaborators, so we don't like to reinvent the wheel. We like to share expertise, knowledge, education. And I had the great opportunity today, one with some parts of this job, to get to drive back and forth from Chincoteague to Cape Charles, visiting the libraries. And I wanted to thank Sharon and her staff. I got to see them in action today and saw the delight on the faces of the patrons as they came in and got to meet with the board. And I will say that I left a foundation board meeting this morning after 3 hours of conversation. So I can always appreciate the support of active boards. We need their governance and guidance. But I did want to say today that I am available to support the library in any way that's needed, and am happy to have that opportunity, and I'm always available to answer questions related to the library system in general.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No one else is signed up.
Okay, thank you. The consent agenda. We just,
I'll make a motion that we accept the consent agenda, which includes meeting minutes and financial report for November 2022.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Let be known as unanimous. Unfinished business, none. Okay. On to new business. Election of vice mayor for 2-year term.
I move that we nominate Steve Bennett for the vice mayor position for a 2-year term.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, that's unanimous.
No discussion.
Oh, what's that?
No, we have no discussion
No
on that.
discussion.
He's in.
Okay.
Thank you, Steve.
My pleasure and privilege.
All right. So what do these both need to be read? Both need to be read? Sorry?
When it comes to the time, it does have to be read in its entirety.
Okay,
9, B, and C, they're being done together.
all right. Okay, so once they're approved, so zoning text amendment 2023-01- New District Bay Crossing Planned Unit Development.
Call on Katie.
What's that?
Call on Katie.
Oh, I'm sorry, Katie.
We do have the applicant with us in our chambers, so we would like to hear from Mr. Marine, since he actually didn't make any formal presentation on the public hearing, just because we had no comments being sought in the public hearing. I know he did make a presentation last month to the town council, but he's here to talk again, if you'd like to hear from him briefly.
Please.
Do you want to repeat from the beginning, or do you want the Cliff Notes version?
Cliff Notes.
Cliff Notes, please.
We always
So
want Cliff Notes.
51 weeks ago, we started with a passion project to do workforce housing in Cape Charles. Hit fast forward, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, we finally acquired the land. I call this project a project of milestones because there's a lot in the way, and this is just one of the milestones we're seeking. We've had a ton of support with local businesses, town, county, et cetera. One of the milestones was the proffer, as you know, that was lifted, and that was restrictive on both setbacks as well as, what's the other proffer issue? Forget me.
How quickly we forget.
Once we get past the milestone, we move on. And so, we've made some progress on utilities. That's an unknown variable at this point. And specifically with the rezoning, really all we're focused on is constructing an economically feasible project, which means we need to do smaller units than the 1,000 square foot minimum that's currently in the R3 code. So when you look at what the PUD application is, there are very minor deviations from what the by right R3 zoning permits. And then we have the addition of a secondary use, which is EV charging as a by right use, and everything else maintains a conditional use permit, meaning we come back through the same process to determine what the future of this land can be. But as of right now, we're programming a 63 unit, which may get reduced in unit size based on some feedback that I've heard on more 2 bedrooms. But the envelope, the building envelope stays the same, and we have a intense focus on outdoor space. When you look at our ratios of what we have for what the R3 requires, we're far exceeding the outdoor space requirements, we're exceeding all the landscape requirements. And at the end of the day, this needs to be not only an attainable project, but maintain a significant amount of dignity and be something that I think has long-term vision for the future of what Cape Charles is and will continue to become. And so that's where we are. So we're asking for a PUD rezone so we can get through building what I think aligns with where multifamily is going in the nation, which is smaller units, and then maintaining an abundant outdoor.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. Can you talk into the mic, please?
Yeah.
Thank you.
An abundant outdoor element. So that's why we're here, and we love your support to get through this milestone so we can advance the next 3, 4, or 5 that are ahead of us.
Any questions?
Question just, or clarification, we've talked through the planning commission. You mentioned the 63 units and some may have to juggle, and there's flexibility in what you're presenting. And you really haven't settled in on what you had indicated was Virginia Housing Workforce Loan Program. In that particular program, they have a number of options there, whether it's 100% workforce, 80-20, 60-40. You have yet to settle on any of those, on any one of those particular programs.
I mean, look, the current idea, and when I say this is a passion project, we're only here to do this because of what we're trying to solve. And so while we have the flexibility to do The option that gives us, to me, the most commitment of what we're saying we're gonna do, which is 100% workforce, is the program that is 100% of the units are set aside for 150% of AMI. And currently, that loan program exists, and that's currently the loan program that's in discussion. And following the planning commission meeting, I did have a follow-up with Virginia Housing for clarity on a couple of topics, one of which was the question mark around a requirement of the 30%,
Right.
which is not in the loan documents and not something that they require as kind of guidance. When you look at what 30% of $90,000 does, it does not meet what my definition of workforce housing is.
Yeah.
And so we are probably going to settle somewhere in the 60 to 70% of that range, but that's going to be somewhat dictated by where the pro forma lands on construction costs, and some of that's going to be dictated on what's happening with the utilities and how that works. So, you know, when I say the project of milestones, I'd love to build it tomorrow. It's not happening tomorrow. This is a big, significant milestone. So to get here, you know, when you look at the renderings and the drawings that we did, do we have that?
Yeah.
It's in the pack, it's in the packet.
Yeah, okay, so when you look at the renderings drawings we did, those are not conceptual drawings. Those are real drawings that will be the baseline of construction documents. So when you work with an architect, you start with concept plan. We did concept plan. We advanced to renderings and vertical construction to see, and a lot of this was to design and see what elements we were going to deviate from the R3, which really is just the 1,000 square feet for the most part. And the next phase of the architect is to release them to do construction drawings that then gets us to the stage that we can go in for building permit. That will be a parallel path to the utility conversation and solution, and that is at what point we derive a pro forma with market rents.
I may have misunderstood. I don't know if you could help me.
Or I can teach you.
It's easy to do, easy to do. You said 100% of the units at 150% of AMI.
Okay, go ahead.
So if AMI is 66,400 for the county, 150% of that is 100,800. So you're thinking that's the target income?
No.
It's a cap.
Okay.
It's a limit. It just means that if you exceed that limit, and the number that Virginia Housing uses, because they use different numbers than what you're talking about, the number is more like 61, and then it brings us to like 93. That just means that that is the maximum limit on a W-2 that can come in to stay, to meet the funding, the loan funding requirements, because they're getting subsidies in the loan to give us the money. It's not, otherwise, I mean, this project is not a private sector project that just gets built, right?
Right.
And so that is the program. This has been thrown in here, and it's kind of irrelevant to the discussion, because that program, while we're applying for it and leveraging it, and without it, this would not be a project that's viable, is the outside parameter, right? Think of it, you're driving, you're in a thunderstorm, and the speed limit is 65. Doesn't mean you're driving 65. You're driving and you're doing what you can do. And so we're gonna develop a project that will adhere to those guidelines, but I am telling you, we will be self-imposing something that's much more realistic, and that's why we need a smaller square footage, because we can
Sure.
do more with less and still achieve the desired result.
So I noticed at Virginia Housing's website, some of the things where they talk about rent limits on studios, 1, 2, 3 bedroom. And then they also have a column that talks about 20% through 80%. And I don't really know what all that stuff means yet.
Does that website make sense to you? 'Cause it doesn't.
It does not, which is why I called them and asked them for, can somebody explain this? And I don't think they could either, so.
Yeah. So, there, if you dive deep, and I mean, you gotta dive deep into the website, there's one page that talks about what we're doing. That's it. The whole website. So you can, because they have different programs. LightTech is subsidized housing, right? That's programs that they do. There are different versions of what obviously they do. What we're doing is the loan program that we are applying for in partnership with them, and they've been with us for the last year, so they know everything that's going
Right.
on. They know I'm here today. Is 150% AMI. That's the restriction. That's the umbrella. And as long long as we operate within that guideline, we get this funding that we could never accomplish in the private sector.
Sure. Thanks.
So could I just clarify, Lance, I think what you're saying, to address your issue, Ken, is that it's up to 150%, correct?
Up to.
Yeah,
up to.
and just adding that up to explains what he was trying to say.
Correct, it's an up to, it's just,
Yeah.
it's an umbrella cap. You stay under that umbrella, and as long as we're, and that's what we'll operate under this umbrella, and that's the intent of this, of this.
Any other questions?
Won't be a problem.
No, we'll have an opportunity to discuss the ordinance proposal.
Yeah, when we get to that.
Right.
Thank you.
Am I sitting down? All right.
Thank you.
All right. Now we go to the zoning.
Well, I don't know if Katie has any more.
Do you have anything more? Okay.
So in the staff report I did provide you, I did summarize from the planning commission public hearing, both the public comments we received, which was one from Sam Jones of 530 Monroe Avenue, indicating he is supportive of workforce housing. He did ask for some acknowledgement and evaluation, saying that there's a possibility that this lot could potentially hold up to 252 units, not just the 60 plus 30 proposed in phase one. He also wanted to ensure that the town would ensure that these would not be used for short-term rentals at all. With that said, because there was such a vibrant discussion at the planning commission level, I included most of that here. When I say most of it, all of it is in here at this point. And so we wanted to just comment on that, just so everyone's clear on it. So we have talked about in this PUD ordinance, under the template, you have to have two different uses, one being residential and then one being something else. And so the applicant has selected the something else to be a commercial use, which specifically is the EBC station that is proposed. It would be a revenue generating proposal. We wanted to make that really clear to everybody that that's meant to be a commercial use, and we completely support that. And actually, from a planning perspective, we recognize it's a deficit we have in our planning for the town as a whole, where we should put EBC stations. And so we are appreciative that the private sector has come forward to include that as part of this concept. From there, we've included all the rest of the conversation, which really was about the component of the text itself, and some of that conversation you heard here this evening. I will fully acknowledge from a staff perspective, I am not wholly supportive of the change that the planning commission did recommend. I have voiced that with the town manager, and we've had a subsequent conversation with the developer, in which we hopefully may have some recommendations to make to you this evening, but I will defer to the town manager in that deliverance of information.
So Katie, the changes that you and John have aren't in this document yet.
No, what you brought, what we brought forward was what the planning commission recommended. That's what you have.
Okay. Okay.
And again, I just want to continue to say, because I know this sounded like it happened again this evening, certain words that were included in the draft document from the developer in the PUD text, you're leaving off certain words that are key, which are up to. And I know there was some conversation about the 30% income, but you left off the no greater than 30% of your income. And again, to put that into context, to understand why that was included and where that came from, if you actually look at our comprehensive plan, we talk about this, about what workforce housing is and what it means to people. And the idea is to ensure that as an individual, they really spend no more than 30% of their income to cover their housing and utility costs associated with housing, so that they don't become housing poor because of the cost of their housing. So that's why that's included. So it was never meant to say you had to spend 30% of your income, just to hopefully reach the goal that you spend no greater than 30% of someone's income.
And that's the line that the planning commission took out,
Correct.
Yes.
right, that we want to work on tonight. Okay.
We would like some conversation.
Yes. Yeah.
And again, as I've acknowledged, we never reached resolution to understand what utilities would be. We never reached it under the comprehensive plan. And then when we had this individual conversation, when I was working with Mr. Marine on the pod itself, we put in rent and utilities, but we've never really understood what utilities mean. So that still is something, if that's ever included, we still have to get some understanding of what that means to everybody. That's all I have.
So just to follow up, essentially what we were looking for was just some sort of definition of what workforce housing is. I mean, we're responsible to administer a program, and we would like to know what workforce housing means. It's not defined anywhere. Mr. Marine's given us a great vision of what that is, but that's not codified anywhere. There's nothing for us to point to and say, yes, this is what we wanted, and this is not what we wanted. So by striking that sentence, that was the only thread of definition that was in the document. And so we are unsure exactly why that was taken out. And we just wanted to have a conversation about whether that was important or not, to have some form of definition in there. I certainly do not agree with having a hard number in there. The example number of 55,104, that's a fleeting number.
Yeah.
That should come out regardless, for sure. But and we agree that 30% it's a guideline. It's not a requirement anywhere. If we want to put that in there, that's great. But I was more concerned with having something that reflects what was talked about earlier. Just a statement that said workforce housing to us is up to 150% AMI. Something short and sweet, something along those lines that tells us what it is we're looking for. And then also somewhere, a very, very short statement that just specifically prohibits short-term rentals.
Right.
I think those two items would satisfy some of our thoughts on this, and we just wanted to present those for your discussion. And that's the, go ahead.
Do I get to participate in this discussion?
Yes.
All right, so by right, R3.
Technically, no.
The property is by right R3.
Got to get at the microphone.
Sorry. The property is by right R3 today.
That's okay.
The 63 units, the 40-foot height, there's no variance. The 63 unit, at the size that I want to do them, is the topic of the discussion. Workforce housing, short-term rentals, both by right and R3. Imposing restrictions on this development or this property that are more restrictive than what's by right today, I don't understand it. I don't understand the imposition. I don't understand the ask. There's no donation, there's no investment, there's no participation from the town in this. If this was a public-private partnership, then that's when proffers and things like this would occur and would be logical to impose restrictions. R3 zoning is by right on this property for multifamily up to 40 units, of which this building fully complies. The idea of the EV charging is to accomplish the PUD requirement that is underlying requirement of the county and commits to what we want to do vision-wise with sustainability. The vote on the PUD is about 1,000 square foot restriction being lifted, as well as some minor setback things that are relevant because we're next to conservation easements. To impose on a developer to manage an individual unit's finances based on where their income level is not how Virginia Housing looks at it. And for me to agree or even entertain the idea that I could have restrictions on this zoning that would conflict with and restrict my ability to get Virginia Housing funding kills the deal from the get-go. And we've done it right. At which point, we've all wasted, at least I've wasted a ton of time and energy and money. So the vote on the PUD is about lifting 1,000 square feet.
If I might, I think that may be from the perspective you have, but we also have a responsibility to the citizens in general of the town. And so you're asking us to move from an R3 where we're saying 1,000 square feet per unit, and just drop that. I think if we want to do that, then that brings in a series of other potential issues. Basically, we know you're planning on doing one unit, and I believe that you have the best of intentions in the way you're going to do that. I have no reason to not believe what you've told us. But what if you don't do the other 3 units? What if you do one, you sell it? Now, the next person may not be as kind of in sync with our town vision as you are. So we have to build some things in to protect the citizens of the town. And I think, from my perspective, we need to make sure that we don't end up with a 250-unit motel, and that this does remain workforce housing. So I believe that you are going to do that, but that doesn't mean the next person will. And so I think we can come up with some wording that meets what your intent is, but also protects citizens in the future. If we look at, as the original numbers were, 80 to 150% of AMI, over 40% of our town's workforce couldn't qualify to be in there because they don't make that much. And that says 2 things to me. One, it says we need to reevaluate our scale of what we're paying people. But that this idea of a minimum of 80%, which you've kind of said, that doesn't make sense. But that should not be in there. So,
I'm fine dropping the minimum. I have no problem with that. And I think that my comment on the 1,000 square feet, I understand your perspective and the opinion. I think my comment on the 30% is, I don't think anybody has the staff to be even able to implement. Like the practical
right,
nature
certainly.
of it is like, I can't figure that out, and I'm very hypersensitive to imposing restrictions that could compromise Virginia housing authority. That's a concern.
Oh, absolutely.
of mine, right? Because that's, without that, we're out. I have no problem dropping the 8%.
Okay. Let's close discussion on the topic and move to a motion. Or, John, you, Mr. Harrison?
Well, yeah, technically, you need a motion on the floor to even have discussion.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
someone should make a motion to put this on the floor, and then you can debate it and amend it if you wish.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we adopt ordinance 2023-0119 that captures the text and the map associated with this PUD proposal.
Second.
All in favor?
No.
No,
No,
I'm sorry,
no.
no discussion.
Now, for discussion.
No, no.
My apologies.
That's okay. That's all right.
Well, let's talk about the 150%, because I think we're in agreement, he's in agreement with the 150% is not going to be a conflict with Virginia's housing financing, okay? And that's just a cap, so we can have the targeted workforce housing segment income range is up to 150% AMI, okay? The 30% I don't agree with. I agree with it as a result of affordability. There's no question that that is a criteria that's out there, but in this particular case, Virginia Housing isn't requiring that. If we impose the 30% criteria, it changes his whole clientele approach, and it mucks up his Virginia Housing financing. Would be more strict on what he can do than what he would get from Virginia Housing.
Could I ask a question? You're leaving out the words "up to."
Yes.
So I'm saying, so if you say up to 30%, how is that in any way restrictive?
Because, okay, so the combination of up to 150% AMI, okay, allows somebody to come in at 90,000, to pick a round number. Up to 30% of that person coming in that's making 90% could not be paying more to his rent. Take the other extreme, somebody coming in at 75% AMI, 60%, $60,000. The criteria would say 30% of that person's gross income can't be exceeded in paying for rent and utilities. It's a sliding scale as AMI, a person coming to knock on his door and say, I want to rent, that person's gross salary is a factor now. And that's where I'm saying the 30%, when you go to the LIHTC programs, the low-income tax housing credits, it's all clear. And that's the way they set it up, the AMI from 0 to 30% and 30 to 60 and 60 to 80%. They have loan values for those particular programs. This is a whole different program that Virginia Housing is offering tailored to workforce housing. So he's saying he's going after the 100% loan segment of that. That's gonna come with Virginia House's criteria on what that means to rent to people.
So should somewhere in this sentence that was removed reference that to DHCD and what they require? Like that's what we base our standards on, is what is current? No?
Mr. Moran, I'm sorry, we're going to ask you to not be part of this conversation now. Thank you.
Well, he's gotta answer
Oh,
some
we don't?
questions.
Okay, well, I thought we got it closed to just inside counsel.
Well, if you have all the questions for Katie and for the developer.
So the way it works is the council is talking, and then you can authorize
Okay.
him to talk.
But my question first was directed to the council to answer, and then if we need input, I think probably. So explain to me, Paul, why that wouldn't work. Like, because that's what changes, is DHCD as far as what they state.
Virginia Housing.
Virginia Housing, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Virginia Housing. That's whose standards are met, that we're requiring. So why wouldn't we reference that as the standard?
We're not requiring it, he's going after it.
But we're pulling these numbers from that.
Well, they define what their workforce housing.
That's what I'm
Again,
saying, as defined in
well,
Virginia
okay,
Housing.
But it's gonna come down to the details in the financing package, right? We don't know what loan rates he's gonna be getting and any other restrictions that he's gonna be, let's say short-term rentals. That may be in the Virginia Housing segment for that portion that's workforce. We don't know. We don't see the financing package. We don't know what criteria that Virginia Housing, and they don't publish it. He's had discussions, and he's bringing that information to the table.
Right. I'm just trying to establish something that's the standard that we reference in an ongoing PUD, so that like what you were saying, you know, we're working with Lance at this point, and he's great, and he's saying he's going to do these things, and we believe in that, and we have a great partnership. If that's sold, then, as Ken said, what do we have there? We need something that's in writing that references back to what the intent is of this PUD. And I don't know how to get there. I'm not saying I have the answer. I'm just trying to
The
get.
developer isn't there yet, too. He's just entering discussions with Virginia Housing, so
Right.
that element is not available.
And basically, we're not trying to put any more restrictions on the R3 that doesn't exist now. I mean, why would we put more restrictions to make it more difficult later
Well,
down the road?
Lance and I have had conversations before, and it's almost like if we were to start all over again and remove workforce housing and just say, here's a new development, the question is, would you approve this or not?
My answer would be no.
It's already in
Based
the
on what?
zoning.
Based
You'd
on
have
what?
to change the zoning to do that.
No, we would have to change the zoning to do this. We're
No, you
saying-
have to change the zoning to stop it.
Let him
No, let me finish. If he wants to put in something less than 1,000 square feet for a unit, which is what his proposal is, it would not fit there. If he wants to come in with 1,000 square foot units, we have a whole other discussion, whether they're workforce or not. But we're looking for workforce, and we're saying that we're going to decrease the size of the unit. So that is a discussion.
Because we're allowing that to happen.
Right.
And I'd like to add something that's a critical piece here. It's something that, if we took out to address your comment, if you took out the word workforce, would we approve it? Probably so, but we wouldn't be paying for the utilities. We're bringing real money to the table to bring water and sewer to this because we want workforce housing as we,
Verification water, you're not bringing sewer.
and we're bringing both. We don't have it in writing yet, but you wouldn't be doing this. You know you wouldn't be doing this if you didn't get sewer, water and sewer. So one way, somehow, we're going to be bringing water and sewer to this project. What do we get for that? We get workforce housing. That's equitable. That works for him, that works for us. All we're saying is, what is workforce housing?
And that's what we're saying, workforce housing, we can all agree to at least the AMI piece of up to 150%.
So you're not opposed to that part being in?
No.
No, it's just a cap.
Just the 30%?
But that currently is not in here. That's
No.
been stripped out by the commissioners. You would
But
have to
yeah, 'cause
put it
they
back in.
cut it out.
I'd say we put it back in, just a cap.
What, I would like to know what John and Katie recommend language-wise, and then perhaps that'll let us get to an amended motion.
I still have, and I think it could be in the statement of intent, the issue of short-term
Yes,
housing.
right.
As a part of that. And I do have one other issue with the by right use in R3 for this property, so we'll get to that later.
As far as the recommendation goes, the document that was presented to the planning commission was a product of a lot of discussion between Katie and Lance, and it was agreed to mutually to go forward. So the document that was presented to the planning commission, I guess you would say, was our recommendation.
With that sentence in it that currently exists, that was straight.
That referenced the 80 to 50% and the 30%. Since then, we've had other discussions, and since then, maybe the whole thing doesn't make as much sense. But as far as I'm concerned, having the up to 150%, I think gets us there.
So,
I can live with that. too.
so can you read what that would be so we can see it, like how, so we can see it? I'm a visual
I've
learner,
got
so I
it.
need to see.
I've got that written out.
Okay, good, because I'm like, well, yeah, where
So,
are we?
Starting with the crossed out sentence.
Yes,
It would read, "The targeted workforce housing segment income range is up to 150% of the area median income, period."
okay. And everything else stays scratched.
Right.
Well, then you have to take out that other one, the targeted housing.
The targeted housing.
Right, comes out.
The new
Yeah.
sentence?
That was inserted, right?
Yeah, that would come out as well.
I'm fine with that.
So it would read, the targeted workforce housing segment income range is up to 150% of the area median income.
Period.
Is that,
Period.
Right.
Yes.
I would also propose adding as a final sentence, furthermore, it prohibits the short-term rental of any property, including through subleases.
I agree to that, it's provided that the unit size is less than 1,000 square feet.
right,
Yeah,
Yes.
that's what-
given, yep.
That's,
Can you
But-
say
but
that
you have
again?
to add that, 1,000 square feet, because right now,
Correct.
there's a whole nother, there's a whole zoning variance, so
Right.
I'm not gonna agree to anything that's less than what is already restricted, right?
Mm-hmm.
The R3 permits short-term housing.
So what was your
So how was,
sentence?
yeah, could you please repeat the sentence?
Furthermore, comma, it prohibits the short-term rental of any property, comma, including through subleases.
Less than 1,000.
Provided that the unit size is less than 1,000 square feet. And I think that I would probably suggest that we would put that in the conditional use
Yes.
permit process, to where you could do it, I just gotta come back and ask.
I was thinking that
Right.
maybe that's the place
Yeah,
for it
who
to
knows?
go as well.
Maybe there's a program that I wanna go for
Right.
workforce housing that is
Yeah.
qualified as short-term rentals, but might be aligned with what our collective vision is.
Right.
To solve the problem.
Right, like contractors that are here for
I mean,
3-4 months.
specifically, it's- I'm working
Not
on-
But
weekly.
that wouldn't be short-term.
That's not
Yeah.
short-term.
Well, I'm rolling out an extended stay hotel model, 300
Yeah,
300
exactly.
hotels across the US right now, and
Yeah.
it's targeted at workforce housing.
It is,
It's a solution for
because that's
workforce
considered
housing, so
workforce.
That makes sense
why-
then to put
And
in,
it is less than 1,000 square
Yep.
feet, so wait, why do we restrict that? then?
Yeah.
What if you carve out extended stay?
Well,
When you say
No, we
short-term
could-
rentals,
we could
See,
put
I was gonna say, we're not on the
for
right
30 days
terms.
or fewer.
We could put in 30 days or
30 days,
fewer.
okay.
Less than
I'm
30
fine with
days.
that.
That's
Yeah,
all,
I'm
that's
not doing
in,
weekly rentals. This
Yeah.
is a
That's what we're
vacation.
talking about,
that's,
Right.
yeah.
that's where
I
we're,
have
Yeah.
zero interest in that.
Our
I'm
short,
fine with that.
our definition is less than 30 days.
Thirty
Right,
days.
30 days or
The
fewer.
28 in February.
Or 29 in leap year.
Right.
Actually, legally, you need to say 28, because what if you lease to somebody in February?
Well, it says 30 days,
it's
so you're not
30
saying
days, just
monthly.
days of the month.
So it's still 30 days. They would just go 2 into March. Well, that doesn't, they'd still pay for 30.
That's not over.
It's my birthday month. I want to rent for my birthday.
All right, let's,
Clarification here. The sentence that you're asking to be inserted, where is that going? It should not go in the intent. It needs to go into
Conditional
the
use.
conditional use.
so,
section.
point of order, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Could we take these one at a time?
Yeah.
So let's not mix topics. So could someone propose a motion to amend for just the one piece? We'll vote on that, then we'll move to the next one.
So Ken, you want to?
For the 100, up to 150?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Number one.
All right, so I'd like to make a motion to amend section 1, number 1, statement of intent, to read, "The intent of this PUD district is to provide for low to moderate density residential development designed to serve the workforce and other housing needs of the town of Cape Charles and Northampton County. The targeted workforce housing segment income range is up to 150% of the area median income. Additionally, this district," and then the remainder of that. This district provides for residential and limited complementary commercial development with substantial town control by both the town council and planning commission through the existing conditional use permit process to ensure any proposed use and application is appropriate for the development and harmonious with the associated multifamily residential development.
Second.
Just need a roll call or just
Or ask if there's any discussion on the amendment.
any discussion on the amendment?
If there's none, then you need a roll call vote on the amendment.
Okay. Roll call vote on the amendment.
Buckholz, yes.
Holloway, yes?
Beauty, yes.
Grossman, yes.
Bennett, yes.
Fulmer, yes.
Thank you. It's unanimous on the amendment to
Good job.
add the line, the targeted workforce housing segment. Income will be up to 150%.
Okay.
The second amendment on the conditional use short-term
Number
rental.
3.
Under 3.
Right. Trying to think of exactly where it fits in.
You could add to the end, notwithstanding the foregoing, and then say, any short-term rental less than 28 days of February.
Or leap
I
year.
think if we just leave it as short-term rental.
Any short-term rentals, in parentheses, less than 30 days, and less than 1,000 square feet shall be deemed a conditional use.
I think the 1,000 square feet will be in another, that's going to be addressed.
No, that's already taken care of.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's already in the body of this. What he's saying is that this prohibition on short-term rentals is limited to only those units which would be less than 1,000 square
Because
feet.
you're already permitted.
Gotcha.
Permitting that,
Okay.
yeah.
So we're giving you,
Exactly.
we're putting our mutual guardrails on this
Yeah.
topic. And that, I would just do it notwithstanding the foregoing. We need to read it.
Katie, does that make sense to you as well?
We need to add it into section 1, item 3.
Yes.
Right.
Section 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
End of that paragraph.
Yeah,
That's what we're
just
referring to.
make it clear. And I wouldn't say at the end, because you've already identified the conditional uses are any other commercial professional uses, and then state this one too.
So you're basically saying, so then go the other way, and it's following conditional uses, but it's subject to, it's not permitted use. Or if you want to go to permitted use, you could add in permitted use, any,
No, because you just said it's through conditional use process, so conditional use may be allowed.
But
All the uses in the C1, C2, and C3, which still requires public hearing process, et cetera.
right.
You're
Less
just
than,
listing
the
what
less than.
that description is.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
And then will we add it after that comma of districts?
And so you just need to tell me again, what is your description of this? Short-term rentals?
Including subleasing of units less than 1,000 square feet.
And 30 days.
That's our definition.
Yeah,
But we need to put,
that's already in
That's in
our
our-
ordinance, as 30, it's already defined as 30 days.
2.9.
but I haven't seen it, so
It's not in our
let's just put it
zoning
here
ordinance.
since I haven't read
It's
that.
in your town code, but not in our
I don't think
So can we
there's-
add it in the
doesn't
line?
hurt.
There's a number of redundancies in here.
Yeah,
just
just,
adopt
it's not gonna
it
hurt
standalone.
anything.
Let's just not confuse it.
It's not gonna hurt anything to add it.
Yeah, yeah.
30 days.
So are you moving it?
I'm gonna let Katie actually do the writing of it because she's better at that.
You're fine.
So again, so under conditional uses, it would say, subject to the conditional use permit application process, the following conditional uses may be allowed. All uses in the C1, C2, and C3 districts, comma, conditional uses in the R3 district, comma, short-term rentals, including subletting of units, semicolon, said units' square footage will be less than 1,000 square feet, and short-term rentals is defined as 30 days or less for rent. And then we continue that, the rest of that sentence. It says, in any other commercial or professional uses which is compatible in nation, blah, blah, blah.
Katie, is it 30 days or less than 30 days?
30 days and less.
30 days
And
or less.
That makes it consistent with
And that
our,
makes it
with our,
consistent
with our other,
That's fine, I just heard earlier
Tax
less
code.
than 30, so I just wanted
Yeah.
to keep, I want to keep it
No.
consistent, I don't know.
Yeah, that's also
I already
state,
lost my
it's state
few
code.
anyways.
I also have one other
Oh,
amendment.
and-
Well, we did-
Oh,
yeah,
we have to
gotta-
vote that one.
Yeah, we got to.
Yeah, we have to say what she said.
Yes.
I move,
someone has to make a motion for that.
yes, I move for us to adopt what Katie just read.
I'll second it.
And roll call.
Discussion?
Oh,
on the-
sorry, discussion.
Discussion on it?
Oh, we get that whole bunch.
That's all right. You'll get it.
Any discussion on it?
Okay, roll call vote.
Buckholz, yes.
Holloway, yes.
Beauty, yes.
Grossman, yes?
Bennett, yes.
Fulmer, yes.
Thank you. Let it be known it's unanimous. And,
Sorry, one other one.
no worries.
Currently, under permitted uses in an R3, accessory dwelling units is a permitted use. I would move that we make that a conditional use, not to eliminate the possibility, but as a by right permitted use, to put an accessory dwelling unit there seems like it doesn't fit with your vision.
What is an exception?
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Oh, sorry, yes.
He's like,
Picture-
sure.
Picture somebody puts in a garage with a apartment above the garage. That's the,
Is it by right today in R3?
yes, it is. And I would say to make it a conditional.
I would prefer not to complicate it and over-restrict. By right today, that's the vision of the R3. I'm trying to deviate as little from the vision of R3 as possible.
They're not gonna be turning the garages into,
Yeah.
that over there.
I'll tell you, that's not a profit center for me if you think about it.
Yeah.
That would be, that would classify under subleasing.
And under 1,000 square feet.
You already
Yeah,
co-
I
you
think we're
already
covered.
You're already covered.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So no motion, we'll move on.
I agree.
We've got the ordinance on the table and seconded with
some-
these two amendments.
Did somebody on the phone?
He just said, I agree.
Oh, okay.
Agree,
Sounded like
okay.
Andrew?
Yeah. So with those amendments, then we vote on the,
So, so
Well, we
you,
put the-
so now you vote on the main motion as amended.
yeah.
Okay, so we'll vote on the main motion as amended. Any discussion?
And that needs to include the addition of the 5-acre minimum in PUDs.
Well, that was the main, that was the original.
the main
That was the
mo-
original
motion.
main motion, was.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're back to the main
Yep,
motion.
that's in.
Just,
that is in
but just for clarity, to the maker of the motion, who is Councilman Grossman. your
Who's on
main-
first?
Your main motion was to approve the recommendation of the planning commission, correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So,
All right, Mr. Buckles.
Buckholz, yes.
Holloway, yes?
Beauty, yes.
Grossman, yes?
Bennett, yes.
Fulmer, yes.
Let it be known as unanimous. The motion passes.
All right, thank you.
Let's see if you can beat Tip if you can. There you go.
That's not complicated.
All right, so does that need to be read in full now,
Libby, is this where,
or do we go to
Actually,
B?
it should have been right before the vote. But
So you're going to make us do that all again? No.
Well, we amended
right
it.
if you go ahead and read it then.
yeah, 'cause read it-
All right,
Yeah,
for-
so-
for-
Have it on the record.
for the record, because it didn't get posted in time, so.
Yeah.
all right. And that is, we have two of them. We haven't got the
Just the
second one
actual
yet.
ordinance, you don't have to read the language.
Paul jumped the gun.
All right, that's the 2023-0119,
Yes.
amending Cape Charles zoning ordinance and zoning map creation, new zoning district called Bay Crossing Plan Unit Development. Whereas the Cape Charles zoning ordinance is completion of ordinances establishing zoning regulations for the town of Cape Charles and providing for the administration and enforcement of the regulations. And whereas the zoning ordinances classifies the territory under the town's jurisdictions into districts, and within each district, a set of regulations for the use of land, building structures, and their size, constructions, et cetera. And whereas, at the December 15th meeting, Town Council was apprised that zoning text amendment 2023-1 and zoning map amendment 2023-1 applications were received from Lot 4 Holdings LLC, care of Winmar Advisory, to rezone tax parcel number 90-19-A from residential 3 to new zoning district called the Bay Crossing Plan Unit Development District. Mr. Lance Marine, the principal contact, provided a conceptual presentation regarding the workforce housing project on the portion of that parcel, and whereas council adopted resolution of intent 2022-1215A, zoning ordinance text amendment and map amendment to the forward, the application to the planning commission to commence the public hearings process, and whereas the planning commission held their public hearings on January 3rd, 2023, then reviewed and deliberated the applications and unanimously recommended approval of the application with several amendments to section 1, items 1 and 4 as attached, and whereas pursuant to the Code of Virginia 15-2-2285 and 15-2204, after proper notice, a public hearing was held by the town council. Now, therefore, be it ordained by the town council of Cape Charles this 19th day of January 2023 that Cape Charles zoning ordinance be revised as shown in the attendance as may be amended by council to become effective immediately, and that the Cape Charles zoning map be amended as applicable to show the new Bay Crossing Plan Unit Development District. Adopted by Town Council of Cape Charles on January 19, 2023.
One of many.
So the next ordinance. Should I read it now?
Yeah.
Is that
That's it.
Okay.
It was combined. We
Oh,
combined.
it was
we
combined.
combined B and C
Yeah.
together.
Okay, thank you. All right. Library material reconsideration procedure.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll take that one. This was an unusual thing for me to bring forward to you. A patron approached the library manager last fall and was concerned about a piece of the material of the collection and wanted to know what the procedure was to have it removed. This hasn't been done in a long time, so the board reviewed that procedure with the manager and came up with what that procedure could be. Typically, that's an administrative function that I would not involve the council with, but in this particular case, I thought this might be an exception. There's been an increased sensitivity amongst the public lately about what is considered objectionable. At the same time, there's also been increased concern over public censorship and freedom of expression. And I felt that this kind of transcended an administrative function and kind of strayed into political philosophy. And while I applaud the board, I think they did a good job developing this policy. for their sake, for the staff's sake, for my sake, I think it's best to validate this with approval from the elected body regarding what this procedure is. Essentially, what's being recommended is that we shouldn't be, we shouldn't be dealing with individual sensitivities about whether somebody likes something or not. Key to a good policy is having a good development policy. What is it that we want in our library? That's the development policy. That's something that they have put in place. If there's ever an objection to something in that collection, it should be evaluated as to whether or not it satisfies the development policy, not whether or not somebody likes it or not. And that's what this policy is designed to do. So I've met with the board, and we've talked it through. They did make a few tweaks based on some of my comments. I appreciated that. The only suggestion beyond what is before you right now that the board did not do that I thought might be worth considering. Right now, any one individual can set the process in motion. And my thought was that perhaps we should consider someone having to get a number of signatures first before starting that process. If someone can't convince others that it's a problem, then it might not be a problem. But the board did not agree with that. So Rich is here to represent the board. And with your permission, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to invite him the opportunity, if you would like, to represent the position of the board.
Absolutely.
If you'd like. You don't have to.
We agreed with you.
Oh, okay.
If you're going to talk, please come to the microphone.
We agreed with John's suggestion. We thought it was a good idea. We thought it would be most fair in the process, both to the individual with the complaint as well as to the other patrons of the library who have the right to access material.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you. The reason I asked, after we had our discussion, the board did make some minor revisions. We had discussed this as a possibility, but they did not make that revision. Right now, the policy before you says that one person can initiate the process. So if you agree that it should take more than one person, then you would need to amend the policy before you adopt it to do that. One suggestion was 0.5% of all library membership is about 10 people. You know, if you can get 10 signatures, you can either make it a number, a round number, you can make it a percentage, whatever you'd like. Round number would probably be easiest to administer. If you agree with that concept, I would request then that someone make a motion to amend the policy to require X number of signatures to initiate the process. Other than that, I would fully support the policy that's been brought forward by the board.
Mr. Mayor, I've got a
If
couple
I
of
may
comments.
return to the mic, the one problem with this, and our conversations with the county library supervisor today brought this out. We are a county system. I mean, I realize that Cape Charles Library is separately funded, but we are part of a county system. And if we begin to amend this, then our policy is outside of the county policy, of the regional policy, and of the state policy. Yeah, so that's
So
the
this
one
is-
reservation.
This is what we have before us is the state policy and the,
Would it help if I can?
It's the addition of the qualification
Oh.
of getting more signatures.
But that's not the only thing that makes this different from other policies. So that wouldn't be,
Yeah.
it wouldn't be unique. This is Cape Charles policy. Right now, one person triggering it is consistent with other policies. But if you change that, that's not the only thing that would be different
Right.
in our policy. Correct?
Yes.
Yes, Mr.
Mr. Mayor, to follow on,
Sorry,
because
sorry,
I'm a
sorry.
little confused with regards to Cape Charles. If we go through the motions of agreeing and something comes out, how is that played out in the wider Eastern Shore Library network?
Well, it would only apply to a piece of collection in our collection.
Okay, so the question, then again, go ahead.
Have some clarification?
You have to
You
come
may
to the
come up.
mic.
Come on up. Okay.
That's correct.
It's a hot topic for him.
Let me try and clarify a little so that we appreciate all the effort that Sharon made in developing a unique and individual policy for Cape Charles. What I would say is that while this was a new experience for Cape Charles, the American Library Association and libraries across the Commonwealth and the United States have been dealing with this since 1939. So it is not really a new issue. And what has evolved over the decades is a fairly consistent policy that is shared by most libraries. And because we do have shared collections, we have shared collection development, for Cape Charles to have a policy that is uniquely different from the existing policies of Nassauwettix Free Library, Eastern Shore Public Library, and Chincoteague Island Library, it does create a bit of a challenge for patrons who use materials from all four libraries, where citizens and users in Cape Charles are being treated differently than at the other institutions as part of the shore region. The other thing I would say is I appreciate the efforts in trying to assist the staff, perhaps take some pressure off the staff. One thing I would say though is staff are trained to do collection development. It is a professional part of their job, and they have educational and ongoing training sessions available through Library of Virginia, American Library Association, certainly folks up at ESPL. And one of the things we try to do is be consistent. And one of the consistencies from the Bill of Rights, from the American Library Association, dating back to 1939, is that individuals do have freedom to read and freedom to ask for reconsideration. That's kind of happened over time. We're extremely fortunate that it rarely happens here. I liken this a little bit to policies and procedures being insurance policies. We have car insurance and we have home insurance, and we hope we never use them. And in most cases, we don't have to. But if we craft robust and consistent policies and procedures, then they're there for us should we need to use them. And we don't shrink from the responsibility that we have to work with our patrons. Where this always starts is a communication with the library manager and the individual. And many, many times it's resolved with that conversation and never has to go as far as the grievance form or process. And this would put me in a little bit of a query, and I have to go back to the Library of Virginia, as to why one of our partner libraries, though it is an independent, unique library, is sort of treating its users differently than the remaining libraries on the Eastern Shore. And I would just ask you to consider that. We appreciate your support and your concerns and your working with the board, but we do feel and know that this has always been an internal library management responsibility. And I would ask you to trust us. Trust the staff, trust the board, and trust the region that we can and would handle this. And in general, it is very successful. And also, when it's not used often, it's a very good sign that their collection development policy is well crafted and on target. You will always have some individual or some group who disagree. That's
Thank you.
So if I can just make sure
I have a
understand
question.
what you're
Yes,
saying.
I'll get right, I know you're trying to get on.
You're trying to say the policy that's attached to the procedure is Eastern Shore wide and perhaps even beyond that?
Yes, yes. The collection development, every library is required to have a collection development policy. Now, they do usually try to tailor it to the community that the library is serving because every community is different. We may have cultural differences, population differences, educational differences, different needs. So your collection development policy, which starts with the library manager, is geared towards your community and what the community needs are. Where individuals come into play is they go into a library, they pick up a book, and they don't believe the book meets their needs or they're offended by the book. That is an individual reconsideration. That's not necessarily a reflection on the policy. If the policy.
And I think that's something different that we're talking about. And I don't mean to cut you off, but I want to just stop the conversation. I know we have other questions that are coming up. Thank you. Steve, is that you looking to ask a question?
Yeah, I mean, do we,
Andrew,
oh, that was
sorry.
Steve as well, sorry.
both of us, go ahead, Steve.
Given what we've heard tonight, do we need to consider this motion at all?
To move the motion?
To add the,
Yeah, do we need to have a motion for this if it's standard policy in the
It's already
library
in place.
system?
You mean to make it a,
Why would we need to vote on it as a council?
Well, we have the policy and then we have procedure, the two-page procedure that steps through what Cape Charles would do. And that's what I'm hearing is maybe counter to the balance of Eastern Shore libraries.
So to answer your question, Steve, you're being asked by me to vote on it because of the political sensitivity surrounding this. Typically, you would not vote on something like this. But I explained my reasoning as to why I thought this was an exception and transcended more of a administrative function because there's political sensitivity involved.
I appreciate that, John. And I'm sorry, I don't remember the lady's name that was speaking that's for the library, but it sounded to me like they had all of this in place in the library already. So there was no need for us to develop our own policy.
But also said that each library has their own procedures.
Correct. We patterned it after the larger policy, but these policies are unique to Cape Charles.
the procedure part.
Yeah, and that's why we keep going back and forth. I have a two-page procedure and then they have a policy. Are you asking for both documents?
No, the development policy is already in place. That's not, we're not asking for.
It's the procedure.
It's a reconsideration procedure is the part
Gotcha.
that
Okay,
I'm asking your approval on.
Gotcha.
And the only point of controversy, I guess, if you want to call it that, is how do you initiate the procedure? First of all, I do want to comment that this has nothing to do with trust. I have absolute, total trust in my staff and in the board. This is not about trust. This is about workload. In today's society, people are becoming way more sensitive to things, and to have just one person be offended by something and then create work for my staff is just not efficient. So that was my only thought on that. Just because it hasn't happened a lot in the past doesn't mean it won't happen much more frequently in the future, because of this increased sensitivity our society is moving towards. That was my only rationale. I'm not hung up on this. I mean, I don't think it's going to be a huge impact on staff time. It's just my job is being as efficient as possible. And so it was a recommendation only. I'm okay if council doesn't want to do it that way, but by making more than one person have to bring it forward, it eliminates the probability that something will be brought forward. That's all.
Well, okay, so.
Andrew.
yeah, I'm sorry, Andrew?
Well, I think Steve covered most of what I was going to say. If this has only come up once, I don't think that merits us having a special different policy and complicating things.
Not the first time.
I think we should just leave things as they are. If it becomes a problem, let's deal with it then, but I think this is unnecessary.
That's fine.
How often have we had, oh, I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying the 10% or whatever we have more than one, given the fact that we have a network with Eastern Shore, I'd say, oh, it's too hard to go through Cape Charles and delegate, I'm going to go to Nassau or whatever and enter my plea to have it withdrawn from the whole network.
No, it wouldn't be withdrawn from our network. It would be withdrawn from wherever it is they requested it.
Well, that's a problem because now all of a sudden Cape Charles doesn't allow Book X that people can draw in from the Eastern Shore Public Library system. So we would have to know that if somebody requested that book from us and it happened to be in Nassauatics and it's going to be transferred down to us for borrowing, we go, oh, no, it's on our list. We can't do that here. It becomes very difficult. Now, again, you're not talking a lot.
Right.
But that's the part I see is we're in a network. And for us to pass judgment on a particular book within that network and limit its availability, if that's what we determine, that seems a little bit off.
That's fine. We've spent way more time on
Yes.
this than it deserves.
Absolutely.
The policy as recommended by the board is perfectly fine. I would just ask for your endorsement of that policy for political cover, that's all.
I'll make a motion that we adopt the policy as written.
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right.
All right, Steve.
Motion passes. All right. Town council representative to the planning commission.
Make a motion we re-nominate Mr. Grossman for the planning commission.
Second?
All in discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed?
Make that one
Aye.
fast.
All right, unanimous. F, town council representative to the library board.
I'll make a motion that Ken Buter be assigned to library board.
I respectfully decline.
Now that we killed the policy, is that the problem?
Nothing against the library and the library system in general. There are other considerations.
Are there any other nominations?
I don't know if Andrew wants it. I move that we nominate Andrew Fulmer for the library board.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? All right, unanimous. All right, Historic District Review Board member reappointment.
I'll make a motion that we reappoint Herb Tom to the Historic District Review Board.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Unanimous. Library Board member appointment.
I'll make a motion that we have Ellen O'Brien renominated as the library board appointment.
Second.
Any discussion? All in
I'd
favor?
just like to
Oh,
say that I
I'm sorry.
appreciate her, I appreciate Ellen volunteering for this effort. I think it's a great thing.
Great.
Thank you.
Sorry, I got cut out. I don't know. I think the phone system didn't like the discussion of me joining the library board. So I didn't hear anything after that. We all voted aye.
You're in.
So you were in, we went to the
Historic District.
Historic District Review Board. Herb was voted back in.
Okay.
And now we're on the library board member with Ellen.
Okay.
All in favor?
And we're ready to vote.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? It's unanimous.
I have one
Oh.
comment, just,
sorry.
just for us, I don't know if it's for future consideration. I brought it up when I first started on council 4.5 years ago, that I don't understand why we don't have a town council representative to the Historic District Review Board. And I'd like for us to discuss that at some point. Can we get it on the agenda to do that, or?
We can pull up the information
We did have a
from 2 or 3 years ago. We, at the time, were recommending an expansion to 7 with town council representation.
Right.
And based on all the ordinances that I've reviewed and the fact that we're an appeal process, there is no town council that I came across that's appointed to the Historic District Review Board.
It just doesn't make sense to me in all of how important that is to our town, that if there's some way to have a council person on there, that, I mean, you know, because sometimes it's challenging when you're on planning commission and then things come to us that we have to vote on. You don't have to recuse yourself from that. To me, it's a similar situation. I don't know, I feel it's such an important piece of our town that we have someone on the library board, the harbor, every single one, except for BZA, because obviously that doesn't, you know, that wouldn't work. I don't understand why we wouldn't have a representative to bridge the gap kind of between that. So I don't know where that falls in the
That's why we're going
discussions.
through and making our zoning crystal clear.
All right, let's move on.
Would have been nice to have done that just before we amended it, because we just worked on it.
Town manager comments, Mr. Hosey?
Okay, Mr. Mayor, so I laid a copy on the desk of Senate Bill 1391. We had citizens' comments on this tonight. This is a bill that was filed by Senator Lewis that would restrict local control over regulating short-term rentals within municipalities. This is a very concerning piece of legislation that happened at the last minute. Plus it's a very short legislative session this time. So we are trying to circle the wagons and to let the legislature know that we're not in favor of this. The County Board of Supervisors is in the process of drafting a resolution against it. I requested a copy of that resolution. As soon as it's available, I would like to draft something similar in support. And because I don't want to wait a whole month because of the shortness of the session, I'm proposing that the work session of February 2nd be a special meeting as well to adopt this resolution. Also, I've reached out to town managers on the shore that would be affected the most. I think the ones that are affected the most are, of course, Cape Charles, Chincoteague, and Ancock. And I'm meeting with all three town managers. I've got a meeting set up with them on Monday to discuss this and other things. And I will bring, if we have it available, the resolution to them as well, for them to consider in their communities. So yeah, I just wanted to make sure you were aware of it. I gave you a copy of the full text of the bill, and you'll be hearing more about that soon.
And that doesn't preclude people from writing in their own thoughts to Senator Lewis.
Oh,
or
correct. Yeah.
individually.
Yes. Thank you. Yes.
What you're proposing carries a lot of weight from the various towns and counties, but I'm saying individuals can pile on to you.
Absolutely.
Well,
Yes. Thank you.
Congressman Bloxman as
More
well.
the merrier.
Yeah. Yes. So individual
Yeah,
citizens.
and I would encourage individuals to do so because the number,
Yes.
sort of the tally of calls and letters they get is very much considered.
Can we pull together that contact information so that as we're asked by residents, we can share that?
I have it, I can send it to you.
So I just think if each of us, if you believe in that,
Katie?
Just to make you aware, the committee that this has been assigned to meets on Monday at 9 a.m. So it would be great if any of those comments could be submitted for the committee meeting and not wait until it gets pushed out of committee, out to the full Senate?
Yes, it could
Because
die
it's
in
possible it
committee.
could be stalled or killed.
Killed in committee.
So I just want to make sure we try and get any comments we would like in at that level.
It was killed in the last time's committee, right, Paul? I believe
Yes.
so.
When the staff,
aspect, yeah, right,
Senator
right.
Staff put that in.
For
wonderful
benefit,
person.
of the public who may be watching on Facebook, Katie wasn't by a microphone. What she said was that individuals who wish to submit comments in opposition to this piece of legislation, please send it to the committee itself, the Committee on Local Government, which is going to be meeting on Monday morning. So if we would like those comments sent directly to the committee to help potentially maybe kill this right there in the committee.
So we still need some guidance for our residents on what and where and how.
Can they be
when.
emailed? Do they have to be,
Yeah, I'm sure they can be emailed.
okay.
So
Now,
can-
some guidance has been given out, and I know it was distributed through the Cape Charles Historic District Civic League.
Right.
They had,
CBs.
the CDs, right, they had pushed that out into their email system, and that had a lot of the contact information.
But do we want to put what I'm asking is from a town, our perspective, do we want that on Facebook? How do we want to communicate to our residents?
On the town page?
I'll work with Libby to put something on Facebook
Okay.
on
'Cause then we-
how to contact,
I'm out of the office tomorrow, across the bay, and several
Yep.
appointments, and one
well.
The information that was shared is on our senator and our delegate. It was not for the committee, so we need that.
Right.
Okay, we can get that out.
All right,
And-
we'll put that out on Facebook.
And then all of us should look at that and share it, whether it's copy and pasting it to our email groups and things like that, so that we get that in.
And I think it's important for citizens to understand, this doesn't mean we are opposed to a group of people or for those who have short-term rentals. I think what it is removing the ability of town government to control what goes on within the town.
Right. That's the key piece.
Right.
Yeah, because we don't want the message being mixed that we're against short-term rentals, because that's not the
No,
case.
not at all. And,
Yeah.
excuse me. Also, just so you're aware, I was contacted by the Eastern Shore Post, and I gave them an interview on that, and I tried to make that clear, that this is not against short-term rentals. Short-term rentals are in a very, very critical part of our economy.
Yes.
It's about local control.
Yeah.
And it's an erosion that you don't want to get started. So, if this happens, then what's the next step? So we need to make it clear that anytime there's an intrusion on local government control, that we act quickly and
Right.
decisively on it.
Absolutely.
So, with that, also, wanted to let you know, the community survey closed on Friday. Was supposed to close on Friday. We left it open all weekend, including Monday, because Monday was a holiday. We finally closed it Tuesday electronically. We're still getting a couple paper ones in, which Julie's inputting, and I'm pleased to announce we surpassed last year in the total number. So
Yay.
we're, as of when I left my office, we were at 449. I don't know if you have any more paper ones you still need to put in, but so I think we were at either 441 or 442 last year. So that's
Did we get more like electronic this year?
a little bit. I think,
So you don't have to enter.
well, we still got a sizable,
It's like 200.
we still got,
No,
yeah,
that I already did.
no, yeah, she's been doing it as they come in. No, clearly, the paper is very important. Last year, it was almost 50-50. This year, I'd say the percentage of electronic went up, but there's still a great percentage of paper coming in.
Okay.
So,
That's good.
it is.
Old school.
It is good. No, I'm not prepared, obviously, to share all the results yet. We will be compiling all that information, presenting it to you in the work session on February 2nd. Just in general, I will say that, not too surprising, the respondents we're kind of hit right in halfway between people who work full-time and people who are retired. That's pretty close. Very close to the number of people who responded who live here full-time and people who own property but live somewhere else, about, even numbers. Generally speaking, the town's receiving about an 80% approval rate in our services for both quantity and quality. So, very consistent with last year. And so we'll be digging more into that, and of course, getting into the comments, which is where the real work is trying to get those comments organized and presented. So we'll be working to get that for you on the second. Also on the second, we will be going over the update to the strategic plan and town priorities. So all that will kind of coalesce. That's all related, and we're running a little late because normally we did the survey last year right after Thanksgiving. We ended it before Christmas. This year we didn't get it out until just before Christmas, so we're running a little bit late. And the reason for not rushing it, but the reason for getting all this done is this has to be done in order to get the budget done. So budget work begins in March, and so that's why we're kind of leaning towards February to get the strategic plan work done. If you're comfortable with it, if we get enough work done on the second, I would suggest we then bring it forward on the 16th for a public input session. That's different than public comments. So the public input session would allow a back and forth. It would allow answering questions. It's kind of a mini town hall meeting. And then following that, if you're comfortable, perhaps adopting the strategic plan. I'm working to try to bring it in line with the new comp plan.
I think that there's two of us that aren't here on the second. Right, is that correct, Andrew? Andrew, are you here?
I will be able to phone.
Okay,
Okay.
I won't, so.
Did you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I did.
So
Well,
I
I'll
want
get
to
you
know how
something
in advance.
In advance, and you can give, if you want to provide any comments,
Yeah.
we'll certainly present those.
Yeah, because those are two important things. Of all times not to be here, but I'm not changing my plans.
No, well, good for you. I also would like to announce we have two new hires in Katie's department. Alice Crockett's been hired as part-time admin, and Bob James has been hired as enforcement, replacing Ken's position. So we're
Oh,
looking
wonderful.
forward to
Wow.
get them started. Alice starts on the 24th, and Bob starts on the 26th. Katie's very excited about that. I put this in one of my weekly reports, but I just want to make sure I told you. It was unfortunate news we got from the state that Roosevelt Initiative did not get their IFR funding this year, so that was kind of a disappointment, but I just wanted to make sure you knew that. And other than that, they left, but I did want to congratulate Main Street on a great year and fabulous Festive Fridays. I was a naysayer early on with the upgraded Festive Fridays, so I want to publicly say I was wrong. And they did a great job, and I just want to offer my congratulations. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any comments from council? Yes, Mr. President.
Two items. I want to just follow along with the Main Street presentation. Very thorough, very professionally done this time. I'm not sure how you're going to improve on it for next time, but it gives me the confidence that the town monies that are allocated are well spent. So that was a very thorough presentation. The other thing I would offer is Watcher Creek. I just went to their planning commission where they adopted the recommendation to town council for short-term rental ordinance. When I was there, we chatted about the Senate Bill 13. Everybody was aware of it. And I'd offer that the mayor there, if you're talking, or the town manager, John, you may want to bring them into the reins. The only thing I had to say with the actual short-term rental, they are imposing a cap. Now, the cap's only 5, and it's in the business district, but that's the first I have seen across all the ordinances I have seen relative to caps. They implied that they have seen it others. I've asked for that information, but that was a difference there. But there's another community that's getting their hands around short-term rentals early. That's all I have.
Thank you. Councilman.
Well, and it was great to have a first meeting and get that under our belt, and I appreciate the confidence that citizens in Cape Charles had in electing me. I think, as I mentioned a little earlier about, I'd love to see a salary study. You know, when we look at most probably of our employees who couldn't afford to make enough to live in workforce housing, we may need to do something about that. We at least need to study that and see where we are. So that's something I'd love to see us get on an agenda at some point before too long. So that's.
One comment is the presentation from Main Street, the last page, that was the rendering of the bathroom visitor center train. Don't put a lot into that. That's not an official look. It's not from our architect. It was just us utilizing the services that we get through Main Street to give us some kind of rough visual idea. And it will be much like that, but I didn't want to take away from the official architect who's doing those drawings. And it's exciting to keep that project moving forward. The train piece of that, we are close on getting a final quote on getting the metal work started and done on that. So that's the first phase of that. We'll be reaching out to the town. We need to get a fence around the work kind of zone area. So Karen will be in touch with Jeb and folks to make sure we go through the right process and all of that. So that's all I have. Yes. Yes.
Councilman Buckles? Councilman Fulmer?
Nothing from me.
Vice Mayor Bennett?
Wanted to say, sorry that I wasn't able to make it, but I appreciate the opportunity to dial in. And Adam, you ran a great first meeting, and Ken, your input was terrific. So happy to have you guys on board. Thanks.
Thank you so much. And I will just close, first of all, by saying thank you very much for helping me get through number one. I'm sure they'll get easier as we go. I'd like to thank Main Street for an unbelievable presentation tonight. It's the second time I've seen it, and it was very impressive. Very happy to see there'll be 5 Festive Fridays next week. Thank you for everybody for speaking in the library. Mr. Marine's already gone, but thank you. Thank you for your comments. And if I could get a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
All right. You did it.